Cloud. All right. Welcome to a new year, the first episode of 2020 of Unique Genius in 33. It is January 8th. It's 11:30 Central, 12:30 Eastern Time. My name is Sherry Strong, and I am excited to be hosting this week. And actually, getting to host my business partner for our very first episode. We thought it would be only appropriate to do this to introduce into the new year. And the talent thing we're going to be talking about this week is strategic, which is my number one. So I'm going to have to really make my lips go, so we can hear from Lori Weir, who is our guest today. But so that's the talent theme. So with that, I'm going to read the definition of strategic for everybody, introduce our guest, let her introduce herself further in a little bit more detail, and then we'll get rocking and rolling for this first episode. So welcome, Lori.
Thank you. Thank you. It's great to be here.
Awesome. Well, we're going to be talking about the talent theme strategic today. And according to Gallup, the talent theme strategic says, the definition is, people exceptionally talented in the strategic theme create alternate ways to proceed. Faced with any given scenario, they can quickly spot the relevant patterns and issues. So does that sound like you're strategic in a snapshot as well, Laura?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It has fit me well from day one, as you know.
Awesome. Well, with that, I think it's only appropriate then. So with us today is Lori Weir, the CEO and founder of Relationship Architects, my business partner. And I'm not going to go into a lot of detail. I'm going to let Lori tell a little bit more about her background, where she's located at. And then Lori, tell the world your top 5 talent themes as well.
Okay. Well, thank you, Sherry. And it is just a delight to start this, not just this new year, but this new decade in this way. And so excited to be with you and trust that your year has started off in just an extraordinary way and your decade. So my background is predominantly in IT. I spent almost 20 years in the IT field. For those of you who have met me, you may still be in awe of that, as am I, candidly. I was a bit of fish out of water, and actually my passion around strengths came from taking the assessment and understanding the kind of value that I brought in the IT world. While in my head, I was an imposter in that world that could be found out any day. So that was the majority of my background, and have been since then moved through all types of entrepreneurial endeavors, and did some time with the Chamber of Commerce and learned so much about community there that has served us well with strong communities, and so now I get to help people discover what is so right with them and with their communities, and it just feeds my soul. So my top 5 are connectedness, maximizer, strategic, futuristic, and belief.
Powerful combination, which I'm really excited to have this conversation. Lori and I have had lots of conversations, as you can imagine, about strengths, and we do our best to live what we preach. So we talk about it, how it shows up, how to use it productively, when they show up raw, which as partners, we refine for everybody else. And I say that with true love, Lori.
Oh, absolutely, and it's mutual.
Yeah, iron sharpens iron, right? So with that, our first question that we like to start with, and when I'm looking over here, I have a separate monitor with all my notes, So my first question for you is, and I love asking this question when we do these, is what do you love most about your talent being strategic?
I absolutely love how quickly I can sort through a tremendous amount of information or stimuli or just information, period, of all sorts, and choose very, very quickly, instantaneously, how to move forward. I mean, that is just, it's a gift to know that I have that capacity, because that's been truth for me for all of my life that I can remember. And I love that. I absolutely love that I can land very quickly on the best approach based on the information that I have in the moment.
I bet you now too, when you look back at that IT career, even while it's not personality wise probably a good fit, but I'm just making the assumption here that when you look back at that, it wasn't connectedness that made you a pro at the IT world. It was the strategic talent thing.
Well, I would
on that maybe.
I would offer that it was both.
Okay.
But I didn't have the awareness. I didn't have a language for what was happening instinctively within me. And so I think the connectedness certainly supported me in being a bridge builder and being very people focused and helping different areas within the organization. As you know, I was privileged to lead voice communications for Deloitte, and it's a partnership. And so each geography could have their own very specific way of approaching things. And so it was my responsibility to get everybody moving in the same direction. And so I think connectedness really served me in that way, because I had a sense of where everybody was coming from. And you know me well, anytime a pebble was thrown in the pond, I had to look at it from every direction and consider every ripple in that pond. So I think connectedness truly served me there. I just didn't realize how valuable that was.
Well, and I think that's awesome. It's a great, because this year we're really focusing on the dynamic. So while we have a focus of a theme, which is strategic, I think that's important because we can make a lot of assumptions around what themes are, which I just did for everybody, right? I made the assumption that it was just strategic, but now you pointing that out, and I think that's very valuable for our audience to understand that they don't stand alone. And what we might think shows up in one way may for us, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's true for everybody else. So thank you for expanding on that. So along those lines though, what drives you crazy about your talent theme strategic?
What drives me crazy, or what drives everybody else crazy?
No, maybe both.
I would tell you that I think the real frustration for me around strategic is that I do land very quickly, and I don't always know exactly how I got there. I just know that I know. And so that is sometimes frustrating because, and you have strategic too, so I know you've had similar circumstances. I can remember often so wanting to value the time of board members of the Chamber of Commerce. And so I would go into a meeting with just okay, here's what we need to do. Let me just offer this as a recommendation, and we can move on, and they can get back part of their day. And what I didn't realize at the time was that I wasn't building the watch for them, right? I was coming in and saying, here's for your consideration. And for me, it had been through the spin cycle of connectedness and maximizer and futuristic and belief, and it just made sense to me. And they would look at me like I had three heads, and you've been there. I think anybody with strategic has been there, where you've landed on something and you state it, and everybody thinks you're nuts. So I think that's a bit of a frustration for me and for others, because we talk about refining. Part of refining strategic is understanding that it's going to take people some time to catch up with what happens instantaneously for us, and we have to embrace that process. So part of my refinement process is always to pause before I share that strategy. And say, okay, what are the key things that they're going to need to know to just walk the path with me? Does that make sense?
Oh, it totally makes sense. And it goes along with the lines of our PhD method, right, that we utilize in our workshops. And that's where the P really is. It's the potential, right? The potential is in the refinement process. It's understanding that it's a mindset that we never have arrived. And so often, and I feel you, right? Strategic, what do you mean? That's just, here's the answer. What more do you want? Right?
Yeah.
And so then when people ask questions, you're like, oh no, I have to go through this all again. Well, to them, it isn't again.
That's right. That's right.
But to us, it's kind of like, why do we have to go down that road? I've already thought it through, right? Even though it was instantaneous, to your point, it just happens now. And for somebody like yourself, where you have the connectedness, it's all the pieces. And as a business partner, I love that we get to share this. I'll ask questions and I even try to keep in mind that you have connectedness and maximizer. Because I have strategic and achiever. So mine is, I really want to get it done. So we land on the result very quickly together, I think.
Yes.
My questions, though, are more framed about the next foundation of that, which is achiever, because my end goal is to get it done. So my questions are framed when your answers will come at me from the connectedness and maximizer point of view. And boy, without this language, I mean, I know you get frustrated with me. It can be frustrating, right? Because I'm like, okay, and I understand the language, but I'm still thinking through trying to communicate in your language, your love language, if you will. So this is why it's so important. And I think understanding that, but yeah, strategic, man, leaving those breadcrumbs for people. And then understanding people are going to ask you questions about the breadcrumb, breadcrumbs. They're going to accept it.
And I'm at a point now where I appreciate that, because it helps me refine it and sharpen it and crystallize it, so that when I do communicate with others around it, that I'm providing more detail. But I would say that I just publicly want to honor the fact that the reason we have been able to accomplish everything we've accomplished in a relatively short period of time is because we do complement each other, and we are able to use this language in a productive way with each other. And so when I think
that's what we want for everybody.
Absolutely. That's why we love what we get to do, right? Is there's a better way, there's an easier way, there's an easier path at just being who you are and appreciating what you offer, but also appreciating and leveraging what those around you offer. Sherry, I want to just offer this really, really quickly. It occurred to me when you were saying, the frustration of having to repeat things, etc., and how we do land very quickly. And it reminded me, not just with strategic, but with every talent theme and every combination of unique genius in the world, we all have our own common sense. And the truth about it is that it's only common to us. And so that's one of the very valuable aspects of having this language for me, is realizing that the minute that I have that little thought bubble that says, oh, come on, this is common sense, right? Yeah, why are you not with me? That's the moment that I know that I'm in my genius, and nobody shares that perspective but me. Nobody else's prism looks like that. And so I just wanted to point that out, that is just truth. And I think part of the value of embracing this language.
Yeah, we wonder why we have discourse. We wonder why we have arguments. We wonder why in the workplace everybody doesn't get along. And they're not gonna, I mean, they what we can do is learn to appreciate what the other how others think. And I know that sounds so cliche, but again, it's about that. And that's what this is about. Let me ask you this. What's the earliest memory you have of using your strategic?
Oh, that just makes me giggle. Because I can almost see myself holding my little doll Puddin'. on my shoulder when I was like 4 or 5. And you know, I grew up in a very active family. My mom was a Girl Scout leader and had a job, and my dad had a full-time job and a part-time business on the side, and he was a scout leader, and there were 4 of us that were active in everything, and I was the baby girl. And so I can actually just see in that home that we all treasured, watching all the dynamics of, you know, a girl in high school, a girl in junior high, a girl in elementary school, and then me at 4 or 5, and everything that, all the moving parts, right? All the moving parts. It's like what I witness or what I sense in my mullet brain. You know, I call it my mullet brain because there's always a what if and if then going on back here. Even though I'm business in the front, I'm party in the back. And so I could just see, I was just always going, what if and if then, and could very strategically approach things. You know, whether that was, you know, it was my turn to have access to the bathroom, or whether it was, you know, whether I could ask for that last fish stick, whatever that was, but just being hyper aware of all of the moving parts, and then discerning instantaneously, this is my time to get my need met in whatever way. Mm-hmm. So I remember it from a very, very early age.
Well, and I'm going to take this moment just to offer to the audience, and I know this year we have a few more people who have signed up for this now, that we believe, and according to Dr. Donald Clifton, we were born with this. It's really not a personality assessment. It is a thought process assessment. This is how you think through things. And we believe that you're born with this. Now, how you were raised and in your situation and your background, all those things either refined it or made it more raw, right? We developed bad habits with it to get what we need or want. And you can refine these and they can move around a little bit, and that's a whole different segment. But just wanted to offer that to the audience, because if it wasn't that way, if it was just purely environment and DNA from our parents, Lori's other 3 sisters would have the same top 5 talent things as Lori, and I'm guessing they don't. No. We'll invite them on in a couple of weeks. Okay, so we talked about it a little bit, about how they play with, like, how do strategic, and especially that it lands. I think it's interesting where they land in our top 5. Yours is right in the middle. Can you expand a little bit more on how it plays with your other talents? You know, can you pick 1 or 2 that it plays with well, and maybe 1 that it doesn't play with so well?
You know, I have to tell you that I think mine play pretty nicely together. And I would offer that connectedness, you know, connectedness just allows me to see and feel the whole field of possibility. Mm-hmm. And strategic serves as I would call it a spin cycle for sorting through all of that possibility, because as you well know, my language includes a lot of ands. Because because there's the initial impact, and then there's the further impact, and the further impact. And so connectedness I can actually get caught in a loop with connectedness of just swimming in a field of possibility, and will often, you know, consciously call upon my strategic to help me land on what's the first step in this moment. What's the first step? So they play really nicely together. Maximizer, I think, influences the trajectory of my strategic. So wherever I land, there's always going to be that element of making it the best it can possibly be, taking whatever that is to new heights. Futuristic, I think, does very much the same thing, in that it's like flavors it with what I'm drawn to in the future, what I see in the future. So it has kind of a long-term perspective to it. Wherever I land through strategic has a long-term perspective alongside it. And then with belief, I think it is the governor of all of my of my other four. You know, I'm very, very passionate and uncompromising about my core values. So the plan always has to have an element of integrity and of being in the highest and best interest of all. And as you know, all gets pretty all encompassing.
Yeah, your
for
belief
me.
in connectedness, yeah.
Yeah, they're really, really, really strong.
So,
And
so why, can I ask this? So why
sure.
you say it's your governor, it also is sounding to me though a little bit like, because for lack of a better word, connectedness is so big, maximizer is so big, belief is so big. It kind of sounds like strategic might actually be a governor for all of them.
Well, oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
It plays that role. When I refer to it as the spin cycle, you know,
Yeah.
it's where all of that comes together, and I'm
Okay.
able to, you know, to see those caution signs. You know, I often call it, you know, our GPS, because it is MapQuest of the mind, right? And so when all of this soup of possibility that is, this soup of possibility of excellence in serving people and in serving communities, and taking it to the highest approach that we can, and doing that in a way that it has incredible impact, not just today, but in the future. And from a connectedness perspective, that it has global impact, that that we really are in a position to introduce people to a way to come to peace with themselves and with each other and with their community, and then those communities connecting. And so so what I see strategic doing is saying, oops, there's a caution sign here, you know, let's not go this direction. So it very quickly helps me take all of that well-intended, beautiful possibility and then spin cycle it through strategic to land on, here's what needs to happen next in order to serve in that way.
Well, along those lines, if I may,
Sure.
how does strategic play, and does it play different roles according to the different roles in your life? You know, with your, I know you take care, or you don't take care of, but you work with your father in running a household, and your sister, and you live in another city as well. And, you know, while that's all one role, does it play different parts in different parts of your life?
My sister would tell you that strategic rules my roost. You know, if we had time, I could share with you some pretty hysterical stories about how we function together, because she tends to be an in the moment person and makes her decisions in the moment, and I always have a plan. And so she will say to people, oh, when they say, I don't understand what you're talking about, Lori, she goes, oh, don't worry about it. She's 6 steps ahead of all of us. And she laughs, but you know, it's kind of, I don't know that that's truth, but it feels like truth for her. So I would say in managing, you know, healthcare, and my dad is 90, by the way, and he's amazing. He just turned in his real estate license a couple of weeks ago. He was still practicing, and so he's brilliant. And I have the privilege of supporting him when I'm in my hometown of Jackson, Tennessee. And my sister and I do that together. So strategic serves me mightily in that, because as you mentioned, I also reside in Nashville. And so I'm back and forth. And then we do quite a bit of travel as well for the business. So I would say that, that it serves me. I would say it shows up candidly. It shows up in the same way everywhere. And at its core, it's about efficiency. It's about how can I get as much done as is possible in the most efficient way.
And that's where, that can sound a little bit like achiever, And often two themes together, and that is sounding a little bit like your maximizer and strategic together, or kind of your achiever, if you will.
It's so true. It's so true.
Yeah.
And the belief piece, you know, there's an urgency. There's an urgency that's mission centric for me to get things done and to move things forward. So Sherry's just smiling. Sherry's like, yeah.
I love it. I love it. I love it. That's what makes us awesome. It's one of the things. So let me ask you this. I love asking this question. When you think of a famous person, while we don't have their assessment, and I wish there's so many people we could give it to.
Yeah, true.
If you could make that assumption that they have the talent theme strategic, who would that be, and why do you think that?
Well, I have to tell you that this question always stumps me a little bit, because I'm not a pop culture person, and so I don't specifically relate it to an individual or to a character, but I will tell you I do relate it to an icon.
Okay.
How many of you may use the Waze app? And so when I think about strategic, that's what I think of, is because, you know, what sets Waze apart for me is that it's going to provide you the most efficient route on the front end. But as the conditions change, whether it's an accident or construction or whatever it is, then it's going to recalibrate to navigate you in the most time effective way. And so that's how I see strategic, is that it is constantly on point about everything that's going on in that moment and how best to be efficient, productive,
I'm totally
and contribute.
That. I usually talk about my friend who does GPSs and does that for a living, but that I love because of the recalibrating part of it. So wonderful. See, that's perfect. Well, then we only have a few minutes left here. What do you wish people knew? See, now we get to do this for a living, and you say this, but just sitting here now off the top of your head, if you could just encourage people, what do you wish they knew about strengths? And why is it so important?
Wow. In the midst of an incredibly divisive world at this moment in time, it is just of paramount importance that we begin to focus on what is oh so right with ourselves, with our government, with our school systems, with our municipalities, with every community, within every community that we live, work, and play. It's just vitally important that we begin to stand in the truth of who we are, and to understand that we offer the world a unique value proposition that nobody else can bring. And I had a conversation yesterday, Sherry. I don't know that I shared this with you, with a superintendent of schools, and we were talking about all the opportunities to up-level the experience of children and the outcomes that they have educationally and the impact of poverty, and on and on and on. And we just agreed that we are the ones we're waiting on. And when we do live in a world where we're so quick to point out what's wrong and what needs to be fixed, and if only they would. And the truth is that we're the ones. And so what is important to me about strengths is it was the most liberating experience of my life. It helped me understand that showing up as me is the biggest contribution I can make, that I don't have to be everything to everybody, that I bring something unique. And that is true for every one of us. Just like an acorn has the capacity to become a mighty oak, we are all acorns. And so what we do, honestly, what we do for a living is we help people understand their potential. And then we help them discover a language for how they can harness that potential and how they can develop that potential, so they can experience more joy and fulfillment and success. and relieve themselves of a lot of stress and improve their health and all kinds of other great things. So maybe more than you were asking for, but that is, you know, we aspire, Sherry Strong and Lori Weir aspire to plant 3 trees with every acorn. We are about efficiency, and we want to serve people and communities and organizations of all kinds in advancing their success and their outcomes by focusing on what is right with each other and with the conditions of their community.
Thank you. I love it. Well, and all along those lines, with this talent theme strategic, just to end this, if you will, bring this to a close, what do you wish everybody would, what is something that you wish people understood more about the talent theme strategic? Maybe how they could, maybe a misunderstanding, or what do you wish they knew?
Well, that's a great one. I would say that at least for my strategic, because I produce multiple alternatives, when people ask me a question of what could we do about X, or how could we affect change about Y, then I typically, and it's connectedness too, but I typically offer something and then I say, or, and then I offer something else, or, and so people often feel like I'm directing them that they need to do all of these things in order to address that opportunity. I'm not. I'm simply offering possibilities. And so it was a challenge for me in consulting early in my consulting career, because there were so many ways we could approach it. And I verbalized them, and people went, "Oh, we don't have a staff of 400." So that's what I would say. That I wish I want people to know is that strategic is an it's alternatives. You know, different ways to approach it. All of them about efficiency. And so ask us, well, which one do you think would be the very best?
There you go. I love that. Well, we right on time. We're going to end right at 33 minutes. What a way to start the year. Unique Genius of 33. People ask us. It's 33 minutes and just enough to eat some lunch and still have a little time to make a phone call. So we want to, first of all, I want to thank you, Lori, for being on here today and kicking this off for us for this year.
My
we
delight.
hope all the rest of you who are watching or watching on video that you come back. You can register for this on strongcommunities.coach. Underneath it says member or strong. It has all the, let me look, I want to make sure I tell them right. Underneath strongcommunities.coach, there's a drop down. It says calendar or Unique Genius in 33. Go to the calendar, sign up, and you can actually get reminders for it. Or just go to Unique Genius of 33. This is open to the public. The sign in, the link is there. Invite your friends, your colleagues to join in and watch these, because this is how we gain our PhD in you. And it takes years, folks. That's why it's PhD. So anyway, with that, we're going to sign off. Thank you all for being with us today. And we hope to see you next week on Unique Genius in 33. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you. Have a great year.
Bye, everybody.